An adventurer named Rude was betrayed by his teammates. Suddenly, one of them slashed his back with a sword, leaving him in front of a minotaur ready to kill him. However, miraculously, the dungeon wall collapsed, causing Rude and the monster to fall into an abyss. Luck was on his side. Rude survived, while the minotaur became his meal. With a burning rage, he vowed one day to take his revenge. And this is the story of Monster Eater. In a town called Bologna, this town was filled with labyrinths, but among them all, the miasma labyrinth was the most avoided. Deadly poison flowed within it, slowly killing anyone who entered. Many adventurers avoided this labyrinth. However, there was one person who chose to face it. They called him the Miasma Scavenger, and he was Rude, our protagonist, an E-class adventurer. Unlike other adventurers, Rude often came to the miasma labyrinth to collect miasma grass, a plant with poison-purifying effects. This was his main source of income, and he took just enough to survive. Today, Rude was gathering supplies for the next 3 days. Suddenly, a suspicious sound came from behind. A group of monster rats, known as miasma rats, was stalking him. The horrifying fact was that the monsters in this labyrinth contained deadly poison. Without hesitation, Rude drew his sword. In one quick swing, a rat's head was split in two. He slaughtered them one by one, but suddenly, a fireball shot from behind, burning one of the rats to ashes. Rude was shocked, speechless. From the shadows, 3 men emerged. Rude recognized them. He had seen them at the guild a few days ago. The leader of the group extended a hand, apologizing. However, Rude refused and stood up on his own. Suddenly, a chubby man from the group shouted, "We found it, miasma grass." Rude began to realize something. They must have followed him to find the location of this plant. With a smug expression, the group leader denied it, saying they just happened to meet and saved Rude from the rats. Realizing he couldn't fight them all, Rude reluctantly apologized and thanked them.
After that, Rude out of labyrinth.
In a restaurant called Full Belly in the town of Bologna, Rude was being bullied. A blonde-haired man mocked him, saying that every time Rude came, the food became unappetizing because of the miasma smell. "Real adventurers are those with skills," the man shouted, flaunting his strength. He belittled Rude, saying he wasn't a real adventurer because he only had strange skills like nullifications or debuffing. It was precisely because of this skill that Rude was immune to miasma poison. However, he didn't have combat skills, making him always alone and ignored by any party. People called him the Miasma Scavenger, a collector of worthless items from poisonous labyrinths. In other words, Rude was a rejected adventurer whose existence was often ignored. That night he felt shattered. Frustration, disappointment, and anger mixed, leaving him lying weak on his bed. The next day, at the Adventurers Guild, Rude came looking for a party, using the last of his money from selling miasma grass. However, something was strange. The guild was very crowded today. Rude asked the receptionist if there was a new mission. "A new labyrinth has been discovered," she replied. "They say there's treasure inside, and every adventurer has a chance to get it." Rude finally understood why the guild was so crowded today. However, there was bad news. The price of miasma grass had dropped drastically from 100 regan to 30 regan. Rude was shocked and asked why. The receptionist explained that the miasma labyrinth was becoming increasingly unpopular. Everyone preferred to go to the new labyrinth. The new labyrinth was located in the Avilio Mountains. But there was one problem: only D-class adventurers and above were allowed to enter. As an E-class adventurer, Rude didn't qualify. However, Rude didn't give up. He asked if there was another way to get in. Suddenly, from behind, an adventurer patted his shoulder. With a suspicious smile, he said, "If you really want to enter, how about being a porter for our party?" And in short, Rude and his new party set off for the new labyrinth by horse-drawn carriage. The leader, smiling, thanked Rude because he needed a porter to help carry materials from within the labyrinth. Rude remained silent, observing them suspiciously. His 2 companions questioned the party leader why he chose Rude. Couldn't he find someone else? The party leader introduced himself as Bayer, the leader of a party called Scarlet Sword. His two companions were named Sasha and Rak. The three of them were D-rank adventurers. Then Rude introduced himself. I am Rude, an E-rank adventurer. Glad to join your party? Bayer asked Rude to show his guild card before entering the labyrinth. Rude happily showed it, and Bayer was slightly surprised that Rude could use the firewall skill. However, Rude said that his firewall was too weak and useless in combat, but it could be used for cooking and as a light in dark places. Bayer smiled and said, "That's already helpful. Don't worry, Rude." Then the four of them continued their journey to Mount Avelio. Sasha and Rak looked happy. They finally arrived at the new labyrinth, very excited and eager to start a new adventure. Then they entered the large labyrinth door, and unexpectedly it was already very crowded inside. Many parties were already there and had successfully obtained the treasures everyone was talking about. Bayer felt disappointed because their party was late. Perhaps the treasures on the first floor were already gone. Bayer then urged his party to proceed to the deeper levels. Finally, they arrived at a labyrinth hall. It seemed that it must have been a grand place in the past. Suddenly, the roar of a monster startled Rude. Luckily, Rak quickly killed the wolf, smashing it with his large axe. The same went for Sasha. She easily killed a wolf with her magic, turning it to ash. And Bayer didn't lag behind either, effortlessly slicing through a wolf with his sharp sword. Rude could only watch in awe from behind, amazed at how strong these people were. They eventually managed to slay all the enemies present. Bayer seemed pleased with entering this labyrinth. However, he was grateful that the monsters were not too strong, and they obtained many treasures. Rak arrogantly ordered Rude to gather the materials from the monsters he had killed. Rude said that the monster materials were too damaged, and the magic stone inside them was likely destroyed. Rak insisted that Rude shouldn't be lazy and collect everything of value. Rude felt very angry and humiliated. He felt disappointed with himself, wondering why he was born weak and without useful skills. Rude approached one of the wolves. He produced fire from his fingers, thinking it might be better if he burned the wolf a little. Rak laughed from behind at what Rude was doing. Is Rude going to burn the monster and eat it? Sasha then said, it's impossible for Rude to eat it because eating monsters is taboo among adventurers. The monster's mana would be absorbed by the body, and who knows what might happen. While they were chatting and joking, a very loud monster roar echoed throughout the labyrinth. A large foot appeared, and it was a bull monster, a minotaur, a B-rank monster. Everyone was shocked and speechless, unable to believe what they were seeing. They all doubted they could defeat the minotaur, while Bayer shouted at Rude to give him his bag because he wanted to use an item. Rude then asked if Bayer had a plan. Bayer smiled, then suddenly slashed Rude's back with his sword. Rude screamed in pain and fell. Bayer then called his two friends, Sasha and Rak. Rak threw his axe next to Rude with the warrior's encouragement skill, an ability that could change the monster's focus to the desired target. Sasha cast the haste spell, which had the effect of increased speed of their party include Bayer, Rak, and himself. Rude asked the three of them, "Did you plan to leave me from the beginning?" With a disgusting smile, Bayer replied, "Of course. That's why I brought you here, you miasma scavenger." Rude could only remain silent. He felt incredible heartbreak. Bayer and his friends fled, leaving Rude as bait to buy time for their escape. Rude shouted loudly, "Damn you all!" The giant minotaur raised its huge axe, ready to strike Rude. Quickly, Rude dodged. Smiling with satisfaction, he said, "I won't give up easily. I refuse to die in a place like this." However, Rude also realized that this might be the end of his life. The minotaur struck Rude's body with its large body, causing the wall behind him to shatter from the tremendous force. It turned out that the wall behind Rude broke, causing both of them to fall into the abyss within the labyrinth. With his consciousness fading, Rude kept his eyes open. He was confused. Am I still alive? Rude fell on top of the minotaur's body, which saved him from a fatal impact. He felt extremely exhausted and his stomach was growling. He needed something to eat to restore his stamina. His eyes fell on the minotaur's corpse. He thought, Maybe Minotaur meat is similar to beef. He remembered someone who once told him as a child, no matter how hard your life is, you must not give up. With a burning sense of revenge in his heart, Rude ate the Minotaur's meat to survive. Every bite felt strange, but he kept chewing and swallowing the monster's meat. There was a rumor among the people that anyone who ate monster meat would inherit the mana stored in the creature's body. This process was called the monsterized state, a fate more terrifying than consuming poison. But Rude had no choice. He had to eat the Minotaur to fill his empty stomach. It turned out that something unexpected started happening to his body. In a dark room at the bottom of the labyrinth, monster eyes glowed in the darkness, watching Rude from a distance. With his consciousness almost gone, Rude staggered while carrying the Minotaur's axe. Rude's eyes began to glow, and fangs slowly grew in his mouth, signs of an unexpected physical transformation. Suddenly, a group of bat monsters attacked him. With quick reflexes, Rude used the roar skill, a powerful roar that could intimidate enemies. In an instant, the bat monsters fell unconscious to the floor. Rude quickly used another skill, Physical Boost, which temporarily increased his physical strength. With incredible power, he slashed the bats with his large axe. He then ate one of the bats and immediately gained a new skill, Echolocation, the ability to detect surroundings, very effective in the dark. Rude quickly realized that more monsters were approaching him. With a confident expression, Rude said, "All right, come at me. Let's see who becomes the prey here, you or me." Without saying much, Rude immediately slashed all the monsters with the large axe in his hand. Each swing of his axe resulted in splashes of blood and screams of death, but Rude just smiled. He truly enjoyed the fight. As one of the one-eyed monsters fell to the ground, Rude without hesitation grabbed the monster's large eye and ate it. He continued doing the same to every monster he defeated, consuming parts of their bodies as if it were a natural ritual. As the monster meat entered his body, something extraordinary happened. Rude's wounds healed instantly. His body regenerated new cells quickly, recovering from every injury he received. Not only that, the power of the monsters he ate began to flow within him, exploding in his body like molten lava. Rude savored this new sensation. He wondered, is this what it feels like to be strong? Is this why people are respected and feared? After defeating all the monsters, Rude stood before a large door at the end of the labyrinth. With a strong push, he opened the door. Bright light greeted him, indicating that he had finally managed to escape the dark labyrinth. With great triumph, he screamed as loud as he could, expressing his pride in this accomplishment. In the middle of the town, inside the Adventurers Guild building, the atmosphere was tense. Everyone seemed uneasy. A white-haired man stood in the center of the room. He was the guild master of Bologna town. Among the adventurers, Bayer stood with a convincing expression. With full deceit, he began to report Rude's death to the guild master. He said, "At that time, the Minotaur suddenly attacked our party, his voice filled with false sadness. I tried to protect Rude, but the monster was too strong. I didn't even have time to save him." Two of Bayer's companions supported his story. They pretended to regret and cry. "If only we had realized the Minotaur's presence earlier," said one of them, "then this tragedy would never have happened." The guild master, who knew nothing, believed their words. He sighed heavily and ordered the receptionist to temporarily ban people from entering the labyrinth. However, before the order could be carried out, the guild door swung open forcefully. All eyes turned to the door. There stood the figure who was supposed to be dead, Rude. Everyone was wide-eyed, confused. Bayer and his companions immediately broke into a cold sweat. How could someone they believed to be dead now stand before them? Quickly, Bayer approached Rude and whispered softly, "If you dare reveal the truth, I will kill you." With a friendly voice, he said, "Rude, thank goodness you're safe. Are you hurt? We searched for you but couldn't find any trace." Sasha, a member of their party, also pretended to be concerned. "We were really worried. We've been trying to find help for you." Rude remained silent. He didn't say a word. Bayer tried to lighten the mood. "Let's celebrate your safety," he said cheerfully. However, before he could do more, his body suddenly froze. He and his companions couldn't move. Rude, with a loud voice, shouted, "Bayer and his party used me as bait." The guild became chaotic. Everyone turned to Bayer with shocked expressions. Bayer himself panicked and began to sweat more heavily. "What do you mean by bait?" asked the guild master, his voice full of determination. Rude explained everything in detail: how Bayer stole his supplies, attacked him from behind, how Rak used a skill to draw the Minotaur towards him, and how Sasha cast haste on Bayer and Rak to flee more quickly. "That's a lie," Bayer tried to deny, his voice full of fear. The guild master sighed and said, "In that case, we'll find out the truth." A robed man appeared in the room, carrying a long staff. He was the truth officer, a high-ranking official with the ability to uncover absolute truth. Calmly, the truth officer began using his skill to analyze the true mana. After a few moments, he said, "The Scarlet Sword Party, Bayer and his companions, have lied. Rude's statement is the truth." The guild atmosphere became even tenser. The adventurers started gossiping, looking at Bayer and his companions with disgust. How could this stranger know? Bayer shouted in panic. The guild master stared sharply at him. The truth skill has a very high effectiveness rate, even stronger than unique skills. No lies can escape it. And the truth officer is one of the highest positions in the kingdom. How could he lie? Bayer's expression turned to fear. Leaving a companion in the labyrinth is a grave sin. Even worse, you injured your own teammate and used him as bait. "For that, I revoke your status as adventurers," said the guild master. "And as punishment, you will be made slaves." Bayer and his companions fell to their knees, resigned to their fate. However, Rude's anger had not subsided. With full vengeance, he drew his sword and prepared to slash the truth officer. But in an instant, Rude easily parried the attack, and in return, he struck Bayer's face with a hard punch. Bayer was thrown far, hitting the guild wall with a loud bang that echoed like an explosion. Everyone was shocked. They just realized how strong Rude had become. Calmly, Rude said, "Don't repeat your dirty deeds, Bayer. It's not good." The guild master invited Rude to discuss in the living room. He said that Bayer might not be forgiven because he had tried to harm the truth officer. The guild master also explained that Bayer and his party had lost their rights to the profits obtained from the new labyrinth. In this case, Rude was the rightful owner of the gains and treasures from the labyrinth. "There are about 200,000 Regan in this pouch," said the guild master, handing the pouch of treasure to Rude. Rude accepted it with great happiness. This might be the happiest day of his life. He thought that if he had to keep gathering herbs, it would take a very long time to earn this much money. However, he also realized that people around him would likely start treating him better because of his wealth. With this money, Rude planned to buy equipment and delicious food that he had always wanted. While walking in the town, his eyes fell on a shop selling magic bags. The next day, in the Miasma Labyrinth, Rude easily killed the monster rats wandering there. He then activated one of his skills, Appraisal, a skill that could detect the status of enemies, even reading information from monster corpses. "How high is my status now?" Rude thought curiously. He opened his status box and was shocked to see his level had increased rapidly. Yesterday he was still at level 7, but now? Even higher than he had imagined. Besides that, he also gained many new skills from eating monsters. Rude felt very happy and grateful for all he had received. However, one question arose in his mind: how strong was he now? With burning curiosity, he began to explore the labyrinth deeper, killing monsters that blocked his path. He passed through floor after floor, but over time, the monsters here felt too weak. "I need to go deeper to find greater challenges," he murmured. Finally, he reached the 24th floor. In front of him, a lizard man stood proudly. The creature wore iron armor and held a sword. From a distance, Rude observed the monster. He immediately activated Appraisal and saw its status. Level 25. Its skills were quite numerous, and from its strength, Rude felt that this was a suitable opponent to test his abilities. Quietly, Rude approached from behind and swung his sword at the lizard man. However, his attack only hit the creature's hand. The lizard man was startled and then ran away. Essentially, they were group monsters, so it was likely going to call for its companions. Without wasting time, Rude chased after it. They ran through narrow corridors until they reached a dead end. "Now you can't escape," said Rude confidently. However, the lizardman's smile only grew wider. 2 more lizardmen appeared from behind, blocking his way out. Rude was now surrounded by 3 lizardmen at once. There was no other choice. A fight was inevitable. Rude felt very angry for being tricked. He was in a disadvantageous position, with all escape routes blocked by the lizardmen. Suddenly, a slash came towards Rude. Quickly, he dodged and immediately prepared his sword. Rude then jumped and counterattacked the lizardman. With greater stamina and strength, Rude managed to knock the lizardman to the floor. He was about to swing his sword, but from behind, a lizardman with a shield blocked his attack. Rude heard footsteps from behind. A lizardman slashed from his blind spot, but fortunately, Rude managed to dodge in time. Rude smiled with a mix of satisfaction and irritation. Finally, he found a worthy opponent and felt the fight was getting more interesting. However, it turned out that there were not just 3 lizardmen there. It was a colony with more than 10 lizardmen. Now Rude was in an even more precarious situation. He wondered how these lizardmen could cooperate so well. There must be a leader coordinating them. Rude looked far ahead and saw a red lizardman. He immediately used the appraisal skill to check its status. The result was that the lizardman was a general lizardman with level 32 and had the commander skill. Rude smiled with satisfaction. Finally, he found a stronger opponent than any he had encountered before, the leader of the lizardman colony. A loud noise suddenly came from the general lizard, and all the lizardmen roared together. The lizardmen attacked Rude simultaneously. Rude quickly used his physical boost skill. He shouted loudly, and the epic battle could not be avoided. Rude and the lizardmen clashed. Whoever was stronger would be the winner. A lizardman screamed, and Rude immediately stomped its face. He jumped up, lunging towards the general lizard, ready to slash it with his sword. The general lizard stood still, speechless, and a sword slash cut through its body. However, Rude was shocked.
What the hell?
His strong slash did not leave a single wound. The general lizard immediately counterattacked. A sword swiftly flew towards Rude's stomach. Rude couldn't dodge, but he quickly used the steel body skill he obtained from a spider monster.
Steel body.
Rude smiled and said to himself, "You think you're the only one immune to weapons? Damn lizard, I'm immune too." The general lizard retreated immediately, realizing that Rude was a very dangerous threat. Rude used another skill to check the condition of the general lizard's body. He was sure his attack had succeeded, but oddly, there were no wounds on his opponent's body. Furthermore, the general lizard did not have any skills that could enhance its physical durability. Rude started thinking, then it must be the power of another lizard man. He quickly detected all the skills of the lizard men present. Finally, he found a lizard man with a sword slash wound on its body. Rude saw a skill named Substitute, a skill that could transfer all wounds and damage to another body. Quickly, Rude approached the lizard man and stabbed it with his sword. In his heart, he felt pity. Maybe this lizard man was bullied in its colony, just like I was bullied for years. He killed it to end its suffering. Seeing its subordinate killed, the general lizard became very angry at Rude. It roared loudly, signaling its colony to kill Rude. Without saying much, Rude immediately activated the thread manipulation skill, a skill he obtained from a spider monster. He used spider webs like Spider-Man to climb up the dungeon walls, then quickly spread the webs to the lizard men below. All the lizard men were trapped in the webs he created. Without much talk, Rude approached the general lizard, smiled, and then slashed its head. The battle finally ended, and Rude emerged victorious. He stood proudly among the scattered bodies of the lizardmen. With a satisfied smile, he said, "Time for lunch." Today was a special day for him. Finally, his dream of buying a magic bag could come true. The magic bag is an item with an expanded space through magic, allowing it to hold many items while remaining small. Additionally, this magical bag has almost no weight, making it very practical to carry. Without waiting any longer, Rude took out his cooking equipment and spices he had brought from town. He began cutting the lizardman's tail carefully, ensuring each piece of delicious-looking meat was perfectly taken. Then, he cooked it using the technique for cooking A5 Wagyu steak, famous among the elite. With his favorite spices, the meat was cooked to a medium-rare finish. As the enticing aroma began to spread, Rude couldn't wait to taste it. He took the first bite and was immediately surprised. It tasted far better than he imagined. Unbelievable! This is monster meat, but it tastes amazing, he said with great joy. After enjoying his meal, Rude quickly absorbed the abilities from the monster meat he ate. This time, he acquired various new skills, including one-handed swordsmanship, shield techniques, poison resistance, and commander skill. So far, Rude had eaten various monsters such as Minotaur, Iron Spider, Devil's Eye, Thunderwolf, Black Snake, and others. However, there were still some skills he hadn't tried. With a full stomach and stamina restored, he was determined to eat more monsters on his way back. However, his mind was still curious about another skill called Substitute from the Substitute Lizard. Continuing his journey, Rude finally reached the 21st floor of the dungeon. There, he was confronted by several poisonous monsters like poisonous bees and poisonous frogs. Without hesitation, he immediately used the Lightning Cloak skill he acquired from the Thunderwolf. In an instant, lightning enveloped his body, incinerating all the monsters blocking his path. Incredible! Rude smiled with satisfaction. This skill turned out to be very useful and strong enough to face various monsters. As usual, after fighting, there was one thing he had to do: cook. This time, he prepared a pan and began processing the meat from the monsters he had just defeated. The result? Fried butterflies and frogs with perfect doneness, golden brown in color. Rude took a bite and smiled happily. So tender. It reminds me of dishes from the city. If only I had a cup of beer here, this would be heaven on earth. After eating, he absorbed new abilities again. This time, he acquired skills such as temperature variation, poison scale powder, paralysis scale powder, and aerial slash. However, his joy was interrupted when he suddenly heard something from behind. The sound was quite close. Could there be other adventurers who made it this far? He thought. Quickly, he packed up his belongings and got ready to observe the situation. He was curious about how other adventurers fought in this dungeon. As he approached, he saw a surprising scene. A blood-soaked sword, and in front of it, a group of adventurers seemed to be hurting someone. The victim was a very beautiful elf woman. From their conversation, Rude quickly realized that this woman was being hunted to be sold as a slave in town. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. It was Rude's voice. "I don't know what's happening between you all, but I can't let violence against a woman happen in front of me." The leader of the adventurers turned and stared sharply at him. "Who are you?" he asked in a threatening voice. Rude smiled casually. "Me? Just an E-rank adventurer." The beautiful wounded elf immediately warned him. "Go away. These are not ordinary adventurers, they are adventurer hunters." But Rude was not easily intimidated. He immediately used appraisal to check their status. Strangely, their statuses were very messy and hard to read. They must have camouflage skills or magical tools to hide their true identities, he thought. The leader finally ordered his subordinates. "Disable him." A blonde-haired man stepped forward toward Rude, his sword raised, ready to strike. However, Rude swiftly parried the attack. The blonde man gave a thin smile and said, "Your technique is quite good." Rude stared at him coldly. "I can't handle a sword. It's just that you're too weak." Those words made the blonde man furious. But before he could attack again, Rude activated the venom skill. From his mouth, he spewed green poisonous liquid directly onto the blonde man's face. A scream of pain echoed as the poison burned his skin. The man's name was Zarius. The members of the evil group standing behind him were shocked. They couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. "You spat poison? He's like a monster." Rude just smiled calmly, enjoying the fear on their faces. The group leader observed Rude carefully. In his mind, he wondered if the poison Rude possessed was a unique skill. If so, Rude was an opponent not to be underestimated. "Attack him together," ordered the leader. Two people immediately advanced, their swords ready to slash at Rude. One slash almost hit his neck. If he had been a second slower, his head would have been severed. Rude quickly retreated to gain some distance. However, from an unexpected blind spot, the group leader appeared and delivered a powerful kick toward him. Instantly, he activated Steel Body. The kick still hit his body, sending him flying into a pool of poisonous liquid. The group leader assumed Rude's neck must have been broken from the strong attack. However, Rude got up and stood again. A curly-haired man rushed forward, his sword raised, ready to finish off Rude. But Rude suddenly ran away. The curly-haired man was about to chase him, but the group leader stopped him. "Don't be stupid. That's a poisonous swamp. There's no guarantee you can come out alive." They realized that Rude was also in danger. If he didn't get out of there quickly, he would most likely die. However, Rude just smiled. "How does it feel to be poisoned by miasma? Suffocating, isn't it?" "Too bad," Rude continued. "I'm not affected at all. My status is immune to debuffs." The group leader gritted his teeth. "Kill him now." A ninja darted with high speed, his sword aimed at Rude. However, having inhaled the poison, the ninja's stamina weakened. Rude easily parried and subdued him. The curly-haired man attacked from the side, but Rude quickly activated Steel Body, easily blocking the attack. Then he activated Lightning Cloak. Yellow lightning flashed, striking both of them. Their bodies were scorched. The curly-haired man was still conscious, despite his body being full of burn wounds. Angrily, he tried to attack again. However, Rude immediately used Aerial Slash. The slash tore through his body, leaving him covered in blood. The group leader was shocked. "How is this possible? Venom, Steel Body, Lightning Cloak, Aerial Slash. How can a human have monster skills?" But his shock didn't last long. Rude was already in front of him, his sword raised high, ready to strike. A fierce battle ensued. The leader, a high-ranking adventurer, should have been able to easily defeat Rude. However, the miasma poison in his body made him weaker. Rude continued to bombard him with relentless slashes. Feeling desperate, the group leader activated Agility Enhancement, drastically increasing his speed. "I won't lose to you," he shouted as he charged forward. However, Rude quickly responded. He activated Physical Boost. Their attacks collided, and the result? The group leader's sword split into two, as did his body. With one slash, Rude had defeated their leader. He had won the battle. Rude immediately saved the beautiful elf. He had done his best to treat her wounds, but her body was still weak from the miasma. While tending to her, Rude thought it was rare to see an elf in such an area. However, what was even more puzzling was why this elf was being chased by those adventurer hunters. Before he could think further, a sound came from behind. A giant insect emerged from the darkness. Quickly, Rude used appraisal to analyze it. It was a Mosfaz Great, a level 37 monster with various dangerous skills. Poison scales, paralyzing scales, poison resistance, miasma resistance, aerial slash, and moth eyes. Without hesitation, Rude jumped towards Mosfaz Great. However, before he could attack, the insect unleashed aerial slash. Rude dodged nimbly, but the attack nearly hit the elf who was still lying weak. Rude ensured the elf was okay, then prepared to counter the attack he had received. He immediately used his aerial slash, slashing Mosfaz Great's body with numerous wounds. Cornered, Mosfaz Great went berserk and released paralyzing scales. Toxic powder spread in the air, ready to paralyze any living creature around. Rude smiled, knowing that he was immune to all types of poison. However, his smile quickly faded as he remembered the elf behind him was still very weak. Unexpectedly, the elf used wind magic to blow the toxic powder away. Rude, who saw wind magic for the first time, was amazed by its power. The battle continued, and Rude eventually managed to defeat Mosfaz Great. However, suddenly the elf collapsed weakly. Rude thought she was affected by paralyzing scales, but the elf shook her head. It's not because of the paralysis. I'll explain everything once we're out of here. They left the place and rested under a large tree. After taking a relieved breath, the beautiful elf finally introduced herself. My name is Alicia. I am a former adventurer. Rude was surprised. What? Are you Alicia the Emerald Storm? Alicia smiled shyly. So, you know me? Of course, Rude knew her. Alicia was one of the members of Azure Trails, an S-ranked party famous in the Ludia's kingdom. However, tragedy befell their group. The party was defeated by a monster. Alicia began to tell her dark story. That day, Azure Trails challenged a monster in the deepest floor of the Abyssal Labyrinth. However, the battle ended in destruction. Their party leader died gruesomely, one member had to retire due to fatal injuries, and another person was swallowed by the labyrinth. Even Alicia herself didn't escape unscathed. Alicia took a deep breath and revealed a curse on her chest, a dark mark that pulsed slowly. This is a curse from the Abyssal Labyrinth. This curse gradually lowers my level. Rude was shocked. In his lifetime, he had never heard of a curse that could lower someone's level. Alicia continued, I've tried everything to cure it, but nothing worked. All I can do is slow down its effects. The problem was that the adventurer hunters knew about this curse and targeted Alicia to make her a slave. Because if her level reached 0, she would die. Suddenly, Rude spoke. Maybe I can remove it. He opened his status and activated the skill, Substitute, a skill he obtained from the Lizardman. This skill had the effect of taking someone's attack or status effect onto the user's body. Rude looked at Alicia. Are you willing to accept the skill I will use? Alicia was silent for a moment, then nodded. I am willing. Rude placed his hand on Alicia's shoulder and used Substitute. Instantly, the curse transferred to Rude's body. A panicked Alicia immediately tried to stop him. Rude, stop. If you keep doing this, your level will also decrease. However, Rude just smiled. Trust me. Suddenly, a large shadow appeared behind him. Alicia's eyes widened in disbelief. It was the manifestation of the curse, a giant and powerful monster. But before the curse could attack, Rude's unique skill suddenly activated. Light enveloped his body, erasing all abnormal statuses, including the curse. The curse vanished instantly. Rude smiled with relief. His experiment succeeded. Alicia was now free from the level-reducing curse. A confused Alicia quickly opened her guild card. She saw something extraordinary. Her status was back to normal. She was an S-ranked adventurer with level 43, just like before. Rude explained, I have a unique skill that can remove abnormal statuses. However, instead of being happy, Alicia glared at him angrily. Rude, are you stupid? Why would you take such a big risk for someone you just met? Nevertheless, tears began to fill her eyes. She bit her lip and finally said, thank you so much. Rude smiled, no problem. And for the first time in a long while, Alicia cried in relief. At Rude's favorite restaurant in Bologna, the atmosphere was cheerful. Alicia sat enthusiastically, sipping a glass of beer, her face glowing with excitement. Meanwhile, Rude could only look annoyed. After all, he was the one treating Alicia. Are you sure you're okay drinking that much? Asked Rude with a worried tone. You just got injured. Alicia chuckled. I'm healed, she said cheerfully, then continued drinking her beer. Rude could only smile thinly. Although a bit worried, seeing Alicia so happy made him happy too. So, what's your next plan? Asked Rude. Alicia smiled mysteriously. Before that, maybe you should answer my question first, Rude. Why did you become an adventurer? Rude was silent for a moment, then began to tell his story. My village was attacked by monsters. I lost everything. Family, friends, the entire village destroyed in an instant. I survived because an S-ranked adventurer arrived just in time. I saw him fight, how amazing he was in defeating those monsters. Rude's eyes sparkled as he recalled the moment. Since then, I promised myself I would become an adventurer like him. I want to protect people from monsters so that no one else experiences what I did. Alicia looked at him in admiration. That's a noble goal. What about you? Asked Rude. Alicia smiled. I want to become stronger and save my friends who are still trapped in the labyrinth. But for now, how about we form a party together? Alicia extended her hand, but before Rude could respond, a blonde-haired man suddenly grabbed Alicia's hand. The girl drinking with you is quite interesting, he said, looking at Rude with a contemptuous gaze. His bald friend laughed along. Calmly, he placed his hand on his shoulder. Let go of her and don't bother us. The blonde man was offended. What did you say? A fight nearly broke out, but Alicia suddenly stood up and said, We're in a bar, right? If you want to fight, let's do it the right way. Beer drinking contest. Cheers echoed throughout the room. Everyone was excited to watch the competition. Glass after glass of beer was consumed until they piled up on the table. In the end, the blonde man and his friend collapsed, while Alicia emerged as the winner. Rude smiled. You're amazing, Alicia. Alicia giggled. I won't let them bother you, Rude. You helped me, so it's my turn to help you. However, before they could celebrate any longer, Alicia suddenly collapsed. Too much drinking. Rude, not knowing what to do, finally used the substitute skill to transfer the alcohol effect from Alicia's body to his own. Alicia immediately woke up full of energy. You're truly amazing. You can cure curses and even remove the effects of drunkenness. I can't wait to form a party with you. And as if not learning her lesson, she invited everyone to drink again. However, they were surprised by the bar owner, who sighed deeply. Unfortunately, you can't taste our special menu tonight, grilled salted Barnama's fish. Why? Asked Alicia, disappointed. The fish have all been eaten by monsters in the fishing area. The bar owner looked at them with hope. So, would you like to take on the mission to exterminate the monsters there? Rude and Alicia looked at each other. Perhaps this was a good start for their adventure. The next day, they both arrived at the fishing location. Using a small boat, they began to navigate the river, looking for the cause of the missing Barnama's fish. I can't wait to defeat that monster, said Alicia, excited. I also want to taste the bar's special menu. Suddenly, the water surface churned. From the river, a giant red fish monster emerged. There it is, exclaimed Rude. But what surprised them was that it wasn't just one monster that appeared. The number reached thousands. They were surrounded. This is worse than we thought, muttered Rude. Rude used the appraisal skill to identify the status of the fish monsters they were facing. It turned out to be a monster named Journeyib, level 23, with skills high-speed swimming, water bullets, and snipe. The monsters began to attack, and Rude parried their attacks with his sword. However, the sheer number of them overwhelmed him. As the assault intensified, Rude suddenly jumped into the water, surprising Alicia. The monsters immediately targeted him, but Rude only smiled. Come here, little fishies, he said calmly. Then, he activated the lightning cloak skill, enveloping his body with lightning that spread quickly in the water. Instantly, a tremendous explosion occurred, and the monsters died one by one. Rude surfaced, while Alicia called out to him worriedly from afar. Rude reassured her that everything was fine, but he realized something strange. Why didn't the monsters attack him all at once in the water? I'm going to dive deeper, he said to Alicia. To be safe, he tied a rope around his body and connected it to Alicia before diving to the riverbed. While exploring the depths, Rude found his answer. A large monster was at the bottom of the river. He immediately used appraisal to scan its status. Name: Tentacle. Skills: Paralysis Poison, Autotomy, Poison Resistance, Accelerated Healing. Rude was astonished by the monster's size. Even more surprising, this monster was creating the Journeyib. If it wasn't defeated, the small monsters would keep appearing endlessly. However, before Rude could devise a strategy, one of the tentacles suddenly grabbed his leg, and the Journeyib attacked again. Quickly, Rude activated Lightning Cloak and killed many Journeyib around him. But what happened next surprised him. The tentacle that grabbed him detached itself. Damn, it has the Autotomy skill, thought Rude. The monster was smart enough to sever its own tentacle to avoid a fatal attack. Suddenly, the large monster lunged at him. The situation became more critical. Rude was running out of breath. Quickly, he pulled the rope on his body, sending a signal to Alicia. On the surface, Alicia reacted immediately. She used her skill to maneuver the boat and quickly pulled Rude up. Once on land, Rude lay exhausted while Alicia approached him worriedly. "Are you okay?" she asked. Rude nodded and explained that there was a boss monster at the riverbed that kept creating the journey. Additionally, the monster had a rapid healing skill, making it even more difficult to defeat. Alicia thought for a moment. "So, do you have a plan?" Rude was silent for a moment, then said, "There's one way. But keep this secret, don't tell anyone." Alicia was confused by the serious expression on Rude's face. Rude began eating journeyed meat, which had the high-speed swimming skill. After finishing, he smiled contentedly and dove back into the water. With incredible speed, he slaughtered the remaining journeyed. The giant tentacle attacked again, but this time, Rude was ready. With quick movements, he plunged his sword into the monster's body. "Goodbye," he said, smiling. Then he channeled lightning cloak into the sword still embedded in the monster's body. The river water began to turn red from the monster's blood flowing heavily. The river should now be safe again. However, the problem was Alicia. Rude wondered how Alicia felt after seeing him eat the monster earlier. Finally, Rude surfaced. However, Erica was not there. Rude thought that Erica must have left someone who eats monsters like him. He realized that he had hoped too much for someone. Suddenly, Alicia's voice was heard. "Rude, you're late," she said. She then asked how Rude was, whether he was injured. "Did you defeat the boss?" Alicia asked, carrying firewood in her hands. It turned out that Erica disappeared not because she left, but to collect sticks. She wanted to make a campfire so Rude could dry his wet clothes. Rude asked, "Doesn't it bother you what I did? How do you feel after seeing me eat the monster?" Alicia smiled. "I was a bit surprised," she replied. "But if you trust me to reveal your secret, I feel special and very happy." Rude thanked her. He then began pulling something from the water. "I want to get this boss's skill too," he said, before cutting a part of the monster's body and bringing it to the surface. Unexpectedly, Rude also managed to catch a fish that Alicia wanted, making the girl very happy and eager to taste it. Rude felt that today might be the happiest day for him. As evening came, Rude invited Alicia to dinner together. He wanted to tell her how he started eating monsters. Alicia seemed to really enjoy the cooked fish. "I still find it hard to believe that you are really someone who eats monsters," she said. Rude tasted the monster meat he had cooked. "If cooked like this, it turns out it tastes pretty good," he said. Their dinner menu this time was journeyed fillet and miso braised tentacles. Rude offered Alicia to taste the monster meat, but Alicia refused. "There's no guarantee I'll be okay after eating it. So, for now, I won't try it," she said. Suddenly, Alicia looked at Rude and asked again, "Rude, will you join my party?" Rude was silent for a moment before answering, "Why me? Don't you have stronger acquaintances?" Alicia was silent before finally saying, "It's been 5 years since that tragedy. Even if my acquaintances back then didn't die in the labyrinth, humans age differently from elves. Most likely they are already old and retired. Besides, most adventurers out there are very selfish," she continued. "I can't trust my life to them. I don't need a strong party. I need a party that can be trusted, that can take care of each other, and have a calm mind. And you, Rude? You are always calm in every situation." Rude closed his eyes, thought for a moment, then smiled happily. "Alright," he said. "Let's make a party." Alright guys, if you want the next recaps of this manhwa, just comment below and I will make it for y'all. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your friend.